Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me for our 2:30 stress break for today. Today's focus is actually going to be stress itself. We're going to talk a little bit about what stress is, how it impacts us, and what we can do about it. So, to begin with for today, we're going to do a quick breathing exercise. We're going to take 10 nice deep breaths together. So, if you can relax and get comfortable, and we're going to try to breathe all the way down and in to our diaphragm. So, if we can take our first breath in and out. Second breath in and out. Third breath. Fourth breath. Fifth breath. Sixth breath. Seventh breath. Eighth breath. Ninth breath. And our last breath. Great. So take a quick second and check in with yourself and see how you feel in comparison to when we started. For myself, even just a little bit of deep breathing can help me to really feel a little bit more calm. So, stress is what happens to our bodies when they get prepared to manage incoming and new events. And so our body has fight, flight, or freeze. And each of these engages our system to be ready to go, to be focused, and to be present. Stress in small amounts is really, really useful. It can help us to think quickly, get out of danger. It reminds us when things are important to us, like the stress of wanting to get a really good gift for someone, right? And so it can guide us in a positive way. Stress, however, can also be too much, and it can be really negative. Stress can impact our memory, can impact our emotions, our physical body. Cortisol that gets released when we have stress actually kind of runs through and affects so many different aspects of our life. So it's good for us to be able to embrace stress when it's positive and to also recognize when it's too much. There are 3 different types of stress. So the first is positive stress. This might be, like I said, stress of getting a good gift for someone, finishing up a project that you're working on. This stress is light, it helps us to focus, and it passes after a certain period of time. Stress that gets a little harder to deal with is tolerable stress. So this could be the loss of a pet, this could be the loss of a loved one even, but the difference is that although there's a lot of stress, it's tolerable because you have strong relationships and a strong network around you. And tolerable stress can last for some time, but not for too long. If it lasts for too long of a period of time, it then becomes toxic. And that kind of stress doesn't help us at all. It is our body being in a state of survival. So we have positive, tolerable, and toxic. One quick way to realize what kind of stress we're in is to sort of ask ourselves, what are we willing to do? So let's say we had a test or we had a project due at the end of the week. If we think, I want to be really focused on my work, this bit of stress is me making sure this is going to be a priority. I'm going to start with this. I'm going to make sure I get a few coffees during my day to stay healthy, and I'm going to really nail this and get this done for Friday. That is clearly in the healthy realm, right? You're willing to do a bit more than you normally would. You're going to prioritize it, you're going to focus on it, but it's still really healthy. If you start thinking, well, I'm working from home anyways, so what really is work, what's really not, and you start working 12-hour days to fit this project in by the end of the week, in my mind, that's where we're getting into more unhealthy stress, and it's taking it out of that positive realm. So, ask yourself, what am I willing to do? And if it's healthy and within good boundaries, this stress is probably a help for you. But if it asks us to do something that's too much or isn't the right kind of priority, like prioritizes work over family in that way, then this wouldn't be a positive example of stress. The way I like to think about stress management is that the more sensitive you are to your body and to the things going on around you, the earlier you'll realize when you're having an experience of stress. I like to think about my feelings like I'm walking down a train track. And if I'm someone who doesn't really think about my feelings, doesn't take time to check with my body, then I'm walking down the train track and all of a sudden hit with an emotion, right? And And we all have these experiences at some times where we're doing good and all of a sudden 0 to 100, right? We're really mad, really stressed, whatever it is. And that happened with no lead time for us because we're not checking into our systems. We're not checking into our body. If we go back to our example, we're walking down the train tracks, but I stop every once in a while and I listen to hear if there's a train coming. Maybe I kneel down every once in a while and feel the tracks to see if I can feel vibrations. I'm going to be way more aware of when that train is coming, and I'm going to be able to step off, watch the train go by, watch that big emotion, that anger, that stress go by, and then hop back on. And so learning how to check in with ourselves is a really important part of stress management. Our activity for today is going to be a quick body scan to try to tell, where does our body tell us that we have some stress? So what I'd like to do is first we'll go over the 3 common places of holding stress, and then we'll do a quick body scan so you can identify any others for yourself. So the first place is in our jaw. So I just ask, focus in on your jaw and ask yourself, can I relax this at all? And sometimes you'll notice that, yeah, I was holding a bit of tension there. So notice your jaw. The second common place is our shoulders. So both because we hunch over, but also because it's easy when you're stressed to kind of hunch up a bit. So can I relax my shoulders? And for myself, I like to kind of bounce them a little and just sort of see where they fit naturally. The third place that's really common for us to hold stress or to kind of early warning signs of stress is our stomach. And so, can I relax my stomach? So when you quickly go through and ask yourself, can I relax my jaw, shoulders, and stomach? Usually, you get a bit of an idea on how well you're doing. And if there's any stress you want to manage. Stress, when it's in a small amount, is much easier to deal with than when it gets larger. So what I'd like to ask you to do right now is to sit back. And what we're going to do is we're going to start down on our toes, and we're going to slowly bring our attention up through our body. And if you haven't really focused on what some of these body parts feel like, you might not really know because you don't have a baseline. But as we get used to doing this practice, it becomes visible what's a normal thing for us to feel and what is involved in stress. So start down at your toes and just notice how your feet feel. They feel stressed, they feel tense, they feel good. We'll bring our attention now up to our calves. Same questions. What do they feel like? And we'll bring our attention to our quads. And if ever you notice when you bring your attention there that there's some pain, that there's feeling of stress or tension, what I like to do is just to take a nice deep breath and see if I can do something to lower that just a little bit. It's not that we're trying to go through and change our body step by step, but we're just honoring that, there's a bit of feeling there. Take a deep breath and we'll move on. But that awareness can help us. So we'll move on now to our glutes. Draw your attention to your stomach. Slowly up your stomach to your chest. Again, noting any places where there's some tension, some pain, and just what it feels like. We'll draw our attention now to our hands, to our wrists, to our forearms, to our upper arms, and to our shoulders. Again, noticing anything that feels a bit tense, taking a nice deep breath, and relaxing it. Move our attention to our neck, down our back, all the way to our lower back. And the last place will be our head. So I'd like you to draw your attention to your forehead, to your nose, to your mouth, to your eyes, and to your ears. Take a second and notice how you feel. You'll hopefully have identified a few different areas in your body that you might feel stress. Each person's going to feel stress differently, but when we really get to know ourselves, it serves as a quick warning sign for when those feelings are building up. And let's do something like take a few minutes of deep breathing, or take some time for ourselves to feel a bit better. So, The last piece I wanted to mention about stress management is emotional management and stress management is a skill like anything else. I talk to people often, and I think that in some ways they expect it to be sort of magical or even ritualistic. But management of our emotions and feelings comes through practice. So just like when we learned how to ride a bike, just like when we learned how to do all the things that support daily function, we didn't succeed on the first time. We won't with our emotions too. There'll be times where we try to do some of these calming activities and they don't work, and that's okay. The more we practice, though, the better we'll be. How I like to imagine it is in my mind when, how I like to imagine it is in my mind, I have a clearing. And if I can make it to a clearing, I can make it to the space of calm. And so I imagine this really dense forest. And if I haven't walked through it to try to find that clearing, if I haven't internally gone to try to find that place of calm inside of myself, well, it'll be very hard to get to. I'm sure you guys have walked around the woods in Alberta. There's a bunch of rose bushes and thorns, and there's not going to be a path. And often we'll give up before we find the clearing. But the more we come into our mind, the more we practice these calming techniques, the clearer and clearer that path is going to get. And it'll widen out so that there's still effort, right? We're still kind of going for a walk in the woods. But with practice, there's a path and we follow it to that place of calm. And so especially if we're trying to develop these techniques during times of stress, like these days, it's going to take a bit of practice to really have this be effective. And that's okay. I just encourage you to practice it. We don't bemoan the fact that we have to brush our teeth in the morning. We just accept it. I think we should feel the same way about managing our feelings. The last thing I want to leave you with is that little bit of stress can be positive. I like to think about it like if you have a couple coffees a day, helps to focus you. That's great. But if you survive off the caffeine, that's going to burn you out. And it's the same thing with the stress. So even knowing that everything is quite different than it was a couple weeks ago, I think we can try our very best not to live off the stress, but have a couple moments during the day where it affects us in a positive way. Thanks very much for being here as a part of our stress break, and I'll see you again tomorrow at 2:30. You have a great day.